the lessons. And so we're going to jump right in to today's lesson, which is a crucial lesson because we've gone into inspiration. We've talked about, who you are, how you were created, the authority, the dominion you have. But now it's time to go into application. It's time to start doing some of the work. So I'm going to be moving pretty quickly. Obviously, this is more of a teaching rather than an interaction. But again, I'm looking forward to you looking to this to its entirety, not parts of it, not pieces of it. I'm still expecting you to take notes throughout as if we were talking live. And I want you to respond with the homework that I'm going to give you. All right, so we're going to jump right into what we're going to be doing on today. I'm really excited about today because it's going to be really dope if you pay attention to it. And so again, we're talking about king status. We're talking about the fact that you are a king and that's how God has created you. I want to jump right into what we ended with last week. We talked about weakness, and many times the issues that we have is not that we are less than, but that we don't understand our weakness. And so I want to draw your attention to 2 Corinthians 12:9. It says, "My grace is sufficient for thee." This is what God is saying. "For my strength is made perfect in weakness. Most gladly, therefore, I rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me." So what this shows us is the weaknesses that we have in life are really not negative. Once you really understand these, fellas, you'll understand that there is really nothing negative. There's really nothing bad. God has created us in his image and in his likeness. He's created us with dominion. He's created us to be fruitful, to multiply, to subdue the earth, and to have dominion. And so there's really nothing that we can face, nothing that we can come against that is truly negative. It's just the perspective that you have on it. So weakness is not a negative thing. This is how it looks like in the Message version, which I love. It says, "My grace is enough. It's all you need. My strength comes into its own in your weakness." So what God is saying is that the areas that you're weak in, or the areas that you're not sure of yourself in, or the areas that you feel that you're not all the way prepared for, that's the time that you can be strong. Why? Because that's where God's strength is made strong. And listen, as we understand, God is not separate from you. It's not like God is in the sky and then all of a sudden you are on the earth. No, God is in you. So what happens is where you're weak, the God man in you starts to come strong. It says, "Once I heard that, I was glad to let it happen." Who says is glad to let their weakness happen? Who says they're glad to be less than? But they're glad because they understand that God is coming forth. I quit focusing on the handicap and begin appreciating the gift. That's such an powerful line. I quit focusing on the handicap and I begin appreciating the gift. We often look at our weaknesses as handicaps, as ways where we can't accomplish, or we can't be promoted, or we can't go forward. But in this scripture, we're seeing how it's actually a gift. We have the gift of letting God rise in our life through our weakness. It was a case of God, Christ's strength moving in on my weakness. It says, now I take the limitations in stride, and with good cheer, these limitations that cut me down to size, abuse, accidents, oppositions, bad breaks. All of you have experienced that. All of you have had times where you feel undervalued, times where you've made mistakes or accidents, times where things have come upon you or come against you, and you've had some bad breaks. Listen, ain't nobody here woke up with a silver spoon in their mouth or millions of dollars in the bank. You have the life that you have. But what it says is, I just let Christ take over. Many times in our weak places, we try to figure it out on our own. We try to make it happen. And I've been victim of that as well. We try to figure it out or try to make it happen or try to use our opinions or our intelligence. What we have to do is just let Christ take over. And so the weaker I get, the stronger I become. I've used this example before. If you take me and a bunch of high school kids and we play against NBA players, we're not going to do, we can play against the player on the bottom of the bench, the 15th man on each roster. We can play against them. But at the end of the day, because they're so much more advanced, we're not going to win. But you take me in my limited talent, and you put me with Steph Curry and LeBron James and Michael Jordan in his prime and it's Kevin Durant, and we're going to destroy everybody. Why? Because it's not about the talent that I have. It's about who's behind me. It's about who's on my team. It's not about the weakness that you have. It's about who's on your team. Christ is on your team. God is in you. You are the reflection, the image, the mirror of God. So you have to make sure that the weakness is not just looked at as a negative, but you really look at your weakness as an opportunity. Ooh, I heard that. You've got to look at your weakness as an opportunity for God to move. You've got to look at your weakness as an opportunity for God to move. You've got to look at your weakness as an opportunity for God to move. And so I want you to make sure that you're doing that. I'm going to stop this share for a second. I want you to make sure you're doing that. Look at your weakness as an opportunity for God to move. But you have to understand, I have this saying, I'm going to continue to say it. There's a side of God I will never see until I recognize the weakness on the inside of me. I want you to write that down. There's a side of God I will never see until I recognize the weakness on the inside of me. Until I recognize my weakness, I can't truly appreciate God's strength. Until you have days of where it's rainy and cloudy, you don't really appreciate the sunshine and the clear skies. Until you have some challenges, you don't truly appreciate your success. I mean, if you had all positivity every moment of your life from the day you were born, you almost would get spoiled. You would almost get a little bit arrogant and cocky. Why? Because you haven't experienced anything. What happens is our weakness keeps us humble. In the scripture says cuts us down to size. So we understand how we need God. Fellas, you need God. Whoever's watching this, you need God. And so there's a side of God I will never see until I recognize and acknowledge the weakness in me. Let's continue. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. So now we're going to go into something totally different, you all. We're going to go into something totally different. Obviously, we understand that fear is false evidence appearing real. Fear is false evidence appearing real. Let me say that again. Fear is false evidence appearing real. Okay. So we have to recognize that the fear that we have in our lives of not accomplishing or not being who we're supposed to be or not getting where we want to go, all of that, that's just fear. That's not real. It's not actual. It's a mirage. It's not a reality. It's just fear. And so I'm not going to go through these. These are your SMART goals, and we'll go through that when we have more of you in the session. But I really want to focus on this just being a teaching. So this is what I need you to put in your mind: no fear, no limits, no excuses. No fear, no limits, no excuses. I want you to even repeat this as you're listening. I want you to repeat it. No fear, no limits, no excuses. This is what you have to have. Listen, you are a king. You have dominion, and you have to start looking at yourself as those that are in different countries. God, he has his own kingdom. We're not talking about Western society where we have a president and democracy. No, he is the King of Kings. Recently, our Queen Elizabeth died in England. And so now another individual has to be put in that place, her son, the king. That's a kingdom. There's no democracy there. It's a rulership. You have dominion. So as the king, there is no fear. There's no limits. There's no excuse. You have what you say. You have what you see. I'm going ahead of myself, but I want you to have that mindset. There is no fear. There is no limits. There are no excuses. The buck stops with you. There's no more higher than you. Of course, you have people that mentor you. Of course, you have people that pour into you, such as myself or other people in your life. But you are God in the earth. You are God in the earth. There is no fear. You speak to the fear. The fear has an ear. Speak to the fear and tell it to back up. Speak to the limitation, tell it to back up. Speak to the excuse and tell it to back up.